Hey guys, Andy Yen, spoken label, back in the house on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, and you can see from the sun in my eyes here, it's quite bright up here. It was like yesterday, it was raining all day long and bitterly cold, but it's suddenly gone a bit warmer today. But anyway, we're off to a wonderful part of the world today. Yeah, and people may remember from a couple of episodes ago, I did a podcast with the wonderful Diane Saunders and Leaf Petite about this book. Yes, and I was trying to get people to see it there. I Am Nature. Now, this is always what I said all along. This is going to be part one of part two. And we're back for part two today. And this is something special for me because people know, obviously, me and Amanda, my wife, are married writers. And I've got a couple with me today that are married writers. And it's the first time I've ever had this on Spoken Label. So I'm made up on this. So we've got the fantastic Andrew Summer and Patricia Summer. Or do you prefer Pat or Patricia, Pat, before we
Yeah, please
start?
call me Pat.
Well,
Yeah.
you're going Pat. That's
Or
why I
I'll
wasn't
think I'm in
sure.
trouble.
Yeah, so my mum's the only one in the world that calls me Andrew, so yeah, I know what you mean with that. I wasn't sure then because with you having Patricia on your book, that's why I thought I wasn't not definite on that. So, but thank you both for coming today, and thank you again to Diane for sorting this one out for us. Because people are noticing the video, we're actually at Diane's house again here. So, because I believe the signal's not your internet signal's not great where you two live, is it at all in Wales?
No, it's not reliable, I'm afraid. But yeah, no, thank you very much for having us on the podcast, Andy.
Yeah, been looking forward to this since I got this book. I think it's back into last year. So, but obviously then, I've heard Leaf and Diane's story, how they got involved with this book, I Am Nature. I'll show it again. I want to learn about how both got involved in this project, first of all.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was fortunate enough to already know the publisher, Beneficial Publications,
Ah,
because I've
right.
had a collection of poems and readings published by them, which they asked me to write. And I've had a children's novel published with them on their children's imprint, which is Gingerfire Press. So I had a good relationship with them anyway. And I was chatting with Diane and Marisha of Beneficia, and I said, have you ever thought about publishing a collection of eco poetry? Because it's just so urgent, just so vital now that we get these messages out. It's the most
Great.
important thing that we're facing, isn't it? And luckily, I suppose being a small independent press, they're open-minded, they were up for it. And they said, yeah, that sounds like a good thing to do. And I said, well, I'd love to do it with three brilliant poets I know who happen to be my husband and two of my best friends.
I
And
take brilliant.
it's been a joyous journey. I've loved it all.
I take it then Andrew was the first you knew of this, and when Pat came home, we said, "Oh, you helped me out with a book, whether you like it or not."
No, she's very good actually, Pat. You know, we talks about everything. I mean, we always talk about our writing and
Yeah.
everything all the time. It's just one of those sort of perennial subjects, isn't it? It always comes up every day. So the fact that we were both involved, I mean, Pat came and the fact you have to remember is that Pat was invited to produce the book, and then she invited us to join her. So otherwise it would have just been Pat's poetry, and that would have been deadly boring, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? No, that's terrible. I shouldn't say that. Poetry is lovely, but no, it came out really nicely that she asked us, and we were able to bring all our separate views and skills together, and it was very gratifying. Lovely thing to work on.
Yeah, oh yes, I can imagine that because I've co-wrote books with Amanda before now, and it's such a good privilege. In fact, I do a podcast with Amanda and with a journalist friend of ours and a stand-up comic. So you're doing like it's when you got like is I can well relate to what you two have done here with this. So yeah, respect definitely and love for it. So now.
Yeah.
I think it was one of your bios, and I don't know which one. I forgot who it was. Mentioned the fact you both met up at a writing class, didn't you? Originally over in Chester. And I think that's fantastic. It's like me and Amanda because we met like through our speakeasy night we run really, and I want to learn about a bit how this happened first of all. Then 'cause I think it's a great story.
Well, we met in the late 80s. We're old timers
Hmm.
in a writing class, evening writing class with Dr. Gladys Mary Coles. And she's a wonderful woman. And sadly, we lost her in 2024. But she used to lecture at both Liverpool universities. She used to run all these creative writing classes in the evening. She had a small press. And I'm staggered by the number of people she must have influenced over the years. She must have inspired a lot of writers.
Yeah.
So we learnt so much from her, and that's how we began, and that's where we met. So it was a lovely place to meet and to have that love of poetry together. It's something that brought us together, I think.
It did. And I think what I should add to that is that not only was she a wonderful poet, but she also knew when to tell us to go away. She eventually got to, we'd been there with her for a number of years,
Wow.
and obviously all of us as a group stayed with her, about 25 of us. Then she had to say, look, I think we need to have a bit of turnover here. So why don't you, some of you, stop coming? So we went off and we set up our own group called Chester Writers. And that was back in 1989 or 1990 or something. And so those of us who left then gathered there at that particular once monthly. And then other friends who had been from the class came to us as well. And so for a while, it maintained that momentum. And I think Chester Writers is still going. I don't know if it's the same group or just another group, but it's got the same name anyway.
I think I have read that name somewhere because my brother lives near Chester, to be honest with you, but he's not a writer, so I might talk
Yeah.
him in. I might him talk into looking into it and get him writing.
Yeah.
That's story for another day. That now, Andrew, obviously, in your case, I know you've got a background in environmental related work, and I found this interesting. We're tickling your work for an environmental consultancy based in
Hmm.
Clwyd. Now, I want you to tell us a bit about this and how does this compare to your poetry work?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I did a lot of work with them, and much of the work we did. I'm a landscape architect by origin, mixed up with ecology and various other things, and I've I've been fascinated by this subject since I was about 7 or 8. I actually discovered landscape architecture when I was about 11, and I trained in it and so on. The work I was doing was basically landscape and ecological repair. So basically taking landscapes that have been damaged by mining and restoring them and trying to create a living landscape. But also, very more importantly, about giving nature a place to do the job for us, because that's what's so important. Eventually nature will take over anyway. All we were doing is really speeding up the process and maybe just managing and directing it a bit. And the company still does that kind of work. So the other aspect of what I was involved in was actually with the design of new things going into the landscape, like roads and also conserving historic parks and gardens and things. So, I've done a lot of different kinds of stuff. Worked abroad in Estonia, France, Spain, can't remember where else now, Eastern Germany. It was always exciting. And always within it, there is the creativity there. But so often you're visiting some of the most extraordinary places. I once went into Brimbo Steelworks near Wrexham, and it hadn't been opened up much. I think buildings had been closed for 20 years or something. Incredibly atmospheric. And in amongst this place, I found a lottery ticket, and it was bought on the day the works had closed, and it was just sitting on a desk, and somebody had walked off. These landscapes, we've made them. These places are extraordinary and they're unique. I'm rabbiting, I know, but it's out of these landscapes that lots and lots of interesting, creative things come. That they are the essence of it for me.
Yeah, no, I get you completely with that. It does. Things sneak up on you sometimes. And I think it
Yeah.
mirrors up with your creativity that you're realizing sometimes. So, as for your
Mm.
case, Andrew, I can see this as a natural evolution straight away with your work. So, makes
Yeah.
perfect sense to me that. Now, Pat, in your case, obviously, I know from what I've read up on you already. I know you started writing young, didn't you? But you've obviously done you shows in your work that you've taught English as well and special needs before you did your own writing and also your proofreading as well. So. Has this been a sort of natural evolution for you in a different way, would you reckon, the environmental poetry you do?
So I think I've always been writing. I think it's just part of me. It's how I express myself from being a young child. I've been scribbling stories and poems. And then my degree was English literature and philosophy. So English has always been my favorite subject, if you like. So I went on to become a primary school teacher, and English again was my specialism, but I did also train in teaching special educational needs. Um, but sadly, my health gave way, as it does with a lot of teachers. I ended up with ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, and had to find something I could do from home. And I trained in proofreading and set up my own little business. And I've gone on to do developmental editing, copywriting, and I can do that and pace my energy. So I've continued with English throughout. And I think probably Andrew's influence as well and his knowledge of the landscape and the environment has rubbed off. And I just feel this is such an urgent topic to write about now.
Yeah, no, agreed. Agreed with you both that. So that's fascinating. Now, obviously, in contrast to both Leaf and Diane's work, obviously with you both been a married couple, when you both were confirmed, obviously you're going to do this book. I'm interested to learn about your process of your writing now, because I know what me and Amanda do, and I'll tell you what we do first while I work, and I'm curious if you two got a similar pattern. Well, obviously we write both independently and both write at very different times of the day, because I tend to write well, after Amanda's gone to bed normally. She goes to bed much earlier than me. And then she'll be up middle of the night writing and I write about early evening. But we talk to each other about our work all the time, sit and bounce ideas off each other. We're like our first choice readers really. But when your poetry was developing in this book, was there any sort of pattern you both were doing on it?
Yeah, we both, as you say, we've all both been writing for a long time, and I mean, some of our poems have been reworked. Written them some time ago, and we reworked them. Others were written very specifically for this publication, and our creativity. We do create. We bounce off each other, don't we? Our ideas and a lot. I always rely on Pat to look at my stuff because you should probably know exactly what I mean when I say you write something and you think that's rubbish. And you condemn it. And then you come back to it a bit later and then you think, oh, that's so bad. So I show it to Pat and Pat will say, that's great, that's fine, that's really nice. You need to develop it a bit here or there. And of course, the other thing is Pat is technically very good on grammar and spelling and all the things. I get muddled up in my sentences. I get very tortuous sentences and I change tense and all sorts within it. And Pat says, do you really mean to say that? She's very good. She's a fantastic person to work with.
I think we've always shared our work though, like you and your wife, it's what do you think of this and how do you think I can develop it? And Andrew's the first person I ask when I've written something new. But of course, up until recently, Andrew's been working full time and I've been working pretty much full time. So we've been fitting this in around everything. So it tends to be evenings and weekends for us that we can get our writing done. It's interesting to hear about your schedule and you sort of grab the moments when you can, don't you?
You do really, because I work full time in a day job, and Amanda works at home full time. So it's a case of I'll come home for sometimes and find out if she's had a quiet day doing her freelance work. She said, "Oh, we wrote a poem today," and like sometimes I can be like, my brain's going berserk on the train, so getting crushed on a train. And I'm getting like a notepad out and scribbling down that way. You do it.
Yeah.
There's no set pattern, but yeah, I get you completely. Fascinating. Now, obviously. I'm going to go next. I want to look at a couple of poems that each of you both done in the book. So I'm going to be asking, obviously, this is where my notes come in handy. I sent them over to you both in advance what I was thinking about asking you. And we're going to do I'll ask you one of your poems, Pat, then ask Andrew about one of his. And I hope I've got this right, where one of Andrew's poems isn't one of Pat's poems, which wouldn't surprise me, actually, if I ever do that wrong. But we're going to talk about them also. We'll come back to some more questions to pair of at the end of it. Now, I just picked out ones that I loved both your sections. I thought both your works, I could see some similarities between them in style, but it's like me and Amanda were, but I can see big differences as well. And I think that's why it's always good fun, that sometimes. Now, the first one we'll talk about for you, Pat, is your poem about ladybirds, which are beautiful little creatures. And I didn't realise there were so many variations of ladybirds as well, and you caught me out with this one. So, obviously, the poem is A Loveliness of Ladybirds. I'll read out the quote that you've put at the bottom of the piece so people get the context of it, and then we'll talk about it then. Ladybirds are in decline in the UK. In recent years, they have come under attack from harlequin ladybirds, which have come over to the UK. I think it was from France. And there is 46 variations of ladybirds. The harlequin could threaten all of them. I love the line here, in igloos of scarlet whispering. What a line.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's two questions I want to ask you about this, Pat, first of all, is tell us about your love of ladybirds and what made you want to start your section off in this book with this beautiful poem.
Oh, thank you. I think a ladybird is something I've always admired since childhood. I'm not so keen on some of the mini beasts like spiders and wasps, but the ladybird, it looks just so dapper, doesn't it, in his lovely little suit. So it's always caught my eye. And I wanted to start my section off with something quite light and upbeat and fun. So I decided to use this poem. It was only at having decided on that, and I was looking up, surely the ladybird can't be under threat, and I was going to write a footnote about it. And yes, it is. It's another species that's under threat in the UK. I think originally the harlequin comes from Japan, and it was introduced to try and control aphids. But like so many things that people do when they think they know better, it doesn't always go right. And unfortunately, it's wreaking havoc now. I think the two-spot ladybird has been particularly suffering. But yeah, we've got 46 species of ladybird and they're now under threat. So what started off as a happy little descriptive poem is actually a cry for help as well.
Yeah, it made me think of as a situation with squirrels over the years, haven't we? When we had the red
Mm.
squirrels and obviously the grey squirrels that came from America, it made me think of that straight away with that, well, in a more bigger way. So no, it's a great choice that one, Pat, to start the book off with your side, that. Andrew,
Hmm.
badgers. Now,
Badgers.
I don't think I've ever seen a badger because we don't got a lot of them where we are, to be honest with you. But I wanted to first of all say about this BBC documentary that you've referenced here. Was it The Badgers, the Farmers, and Me? And obviously, I
Hmm.
found this quite a shocking story. This actually, when they culled, didn't they, half of the
Yeah.
badgers into 2013 because of misinformation. But I loved the the use of the where in this piece. I thought it, and it's a great piece again, and I thought it's a good choice. Your good choice to start off your section. So, can you tell us a bit about this piece then, and where your love of badgers comes
Okay.
from?
Yeah, well, when I was born in the Cotswolds, and we lived in a house at the end of the road, at the top of the valley, called Badger's Moot, and it was called Badger's Moot
What a
because
name!
all the badgers would gather there, and I mean, you couldn't escape badgers. You saw them occasionally, but you saw the signs of them, the paths and the latrine sites and the sets and the mess they used to make. And they used to bumble around in this landscape. They're not very poor eyesight. They bumble around in this landscape in this wonderful little valley, and we'd see signs of them everywhere. So they were part of life. And then later on, I don't think I ever saw one as a child, but later on, I remember once going out for a walk and standing in a field at dusk on a May day. The scent of grass and flowers and everything was thick in the air. And the badgers came out of a set, a whole family, two parents and the youngsters, and they literally played around me. They weren't aware that I was there
Oh,
because the smell covered up my scent and the air was so still and they didn't see me. That was the most extraordinary, joyous experience. I came away, well, it was wonderful. And then when Pat and I, when we met many years ago when we were living in Chester, we went out walking in the Petherton Hills, and there was one evening, and we went to a site where badgers, where I'd found sets previously to watch them, and we didn't see a lot of them, but this poem drew out of those collected experiences, but particularly the one in Cheshire. And I use the phrase, the word where in that way to try and hold that moment. At the start of the poem, I'm setting the scene, and then just to kind of keep that sense of tension as you wait for the badgers to come out of their sets in the evening. And it was exactly how it was for us, wasn't it?
yeah, it's incredibly vivid poem that one. I can see it. That
Thank you.
really explains why that does. And
Thank you.
Pat, obviously your second poem. This feels like a much more personal poem to me. This one, Anglesey Farm. And I loved the snapshot use of this poem, particularly the first stanza with Bob. And you can tell me who Bob was in a moment. I have ideas, but I'll let you tell me. And it looks at things from a different time. And I loved it where the halfway point, I think it was, but look now, limestone, where the measuring of this piece is absolutely spot on. And you can see it's took some time to think this through to me really well, from what I guess was a distant memory. What did you discover about yourself during the craft of this poem? It felt like you're learning a lesson.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's a farm we used to visit a lot on Anglesey where I grew up. as a child, my family and I would go there and see the lovely family that lived at the farm and just spend a day there. And my mother and her sister had been to the same farm when they were in their teens, so we had a long-standing relationship with them. And it had always been a place, obviously, you're seeing it through a child's eyes, so everything is new and beautiful and bright and shining. But it always been a place of old traditional ways of farming, on a small scale, just a few cows, a couple of pigs, some hens. And they seemed to somehow manage to make a living, and it was idyllic. And then I made the mistake of going back to try and find the farm many years later. And of course, it's completely changed. And it's true for most farmers these days. You have to work on a big scale now just to make a living. It's a really tough business to be in. But of course, the whole place had changed as a result. So I think what I learned about myself through writing this poem is how much more aware I am now of the environmental issues that are out there. Whereas before it was rose-tinted spectacles and what a lovely view. Now I can see, well, actually, it's pretty much a monoculture and there's not much space for diversity. So it's that kind of sadness really that you face every day that actually I now know that this isn't thriving.
Yeah, I got the sadness in the piece there, and it was the definite amount of reflection. Now, great piece. Now, Andrew, your second piece was Exiled, I want to talk about. I've not made a lot of notes on this, but I put Llama in Exile, which I thought it's great because Manda's younger sister, when she got married, that's the first time I met a llama, that was. And it actually, I remember eating Helen's bouquet. It was good. Taking pictures of this llama that stood next to her, and then when she got married, and he's chomping away at her bouquet. And you can see,
Brilliant.
yeah, you can see her going, stood in the picture, like two pictures. One stood there dead happy. Next thing you know, she's going berserk at the llamas, jumped into her lap. But anyway, I want to learn, obviously, it's from the Andres Mountains in South Africa, South America, I know that already. But obviously, they're not that common in this country. So I want to learn about what was the inspiration behind this poem then?
Well, it was a shock to discover this llama. I mean, I was jogging at a stage when my knees worked and I could jog. I used to run all the time, every day, and it was very early one morning. I went for this jog. It really was early. I mean, but of course, high summer, so lovely long days. I went and suddenly I stopped to catch breath, and this thing was there, just looking at me. I was stopped by a gate, and there he was looking at me, and it was very much a case of, well, it was a bit condescending of him, actually. It was very much a case of, I don't, not sure you should be here, but, and I called him Di, actually, Di Lama. But he's, I always thought it was rather sad for him to be all alone, thousands of miles away from home, on an island in the middle of the sea, isolated all in this little semi-wild field, all on his own. It was poignant, this business of being exiled and having no way to communicate with those around you. And I felt very sorry for him. And to me, it was quite important because needing to communicate, you can feel very lonely, and to be taken quite so far from home is terrible. And I know people love llamas, and there are lots of them now, but this particular one, poor fellow, all on his own. It was just so sad, such a sad moment.
Yeah, I can imagine that because you say that, and then we like, I'm going to come into more on your poem in a minute, Pax, just the links to the one I'll ask you next. But certainly, like in the forest we go nearby, sometimes we come across horses that stood in fields by themselves, and you wonder, don't you, sometimes, like, how do they actually survive by themselves like that sometimes? Because it's got to be very lonely sometimes. So I can understand
Yeah,
that.
they're a herd animal, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's what I understand. Like, the llama one you mentioned there, Andrew, that is unusual what I understand about them. And it's like a wild llama, and I've not heard of them before actually in England. So it's like, you wonder,
No,
did you wonder, like, looking back, do you think he'd actually ran off or something, or was it living wild?
no, people farm them for the wool, I think.
Ah, right.
But so I think this was just somebody's hobby animal. They bought it. But yeah, it just chimed with me. This my own loneliness at the time. We shared moments of saying, yeah, well, the world's not quite so bad after all.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got that piece. Oh, brilliant. Now, people obviously would have heard Lefa and Diane's part one podcast. I made a stumble on one or two bits and pieces in Welsh here. And the next one I'm going to ask about Diane's poems. This is where I'm going to end up stumbling on this. So you might have to correct me here, Diane. Easter at, is it? Oh my good grief. Is it clock and nog, is it? Or am I completely out?
Yeah,
I'm
Clocaenog.
out. I'm out.
Yeah.
I know it's a forest, a large conifer woodland in northeast Wales, and did that near was it Rutland. And I
Mhm.
really like the intro to your poem here, Pat, because I've got, as I said before, where we live in, we're much more in the middle of a city, but there's a big forest about 10 minutes walk from us. And that's what I could really see what you're on about is silver branches stretching for sky. And it's a conscious resurrection from the winter's long and desperate dark. Because we're due to go back into our forest probably next couple of weeks. I've not been for about a couple of months. And we see that every time we go this time of year, when everything's frozen over. It's just a beautiful sight.
Mm.
So I want to
Mhm.
learn about this poem next then. Where did this come from?
Well, this poem is dedicated to a very dear friend of mine called Becky, and it was written for her because it was Easter time. She was struggling with her health and feeling very isolated and trapped in her house in quite a remote spot. And I'd been to visit her, and on the way home, it just all kind of hit me. I had to drive through the edge of the Clocaenog forest, which, as you say, is a huge area of woodland. And it was that sense of Becky struggling, the forest struggling, trying to break out of winter into spring. And I just want to establish a sense of hope that things will get better, both for her and for the forest. Those were the images I was trying to create.
I think sometimes going through forests like that and nature, it makes you realise sometimes that how significant our lives are sometimes. And
Mm.
it gives you, it's done it for me before now, when my father had his last heart attack a couple of years ago. He's okay, and he's stated that. But he's
Oh,
like,
good.
yeah, but he's 90 now as well somehow. So I don't know I don't know how he
Well,
does it. But his case, when we went for a walk in the woods and I was looking at the river, sometimes it lets you look at things in different ways. That's why I
Mm.
got off that poem. 'Cause I wondered if Becky was very ill. That's why the that. But no,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful
And I
poem.
think it's nice to use nature sometimes to reflect our feelings, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can find aspects of nature that show exactly what you're going through.
Yeah, it's a calmness sometimes. I think it calms you down. That's why. I got off that piece. Oh, brilliant. Now,
Thank you.
the last one I want to talk about is one of yours, Andrew, here, Shaman,
hmm.
which is based
Oh,
on a
yeah.
painting by, is it Madge Nyman? And
My,
no, don't
my.
cover mine. But I've been looking at her paintings, and they're really, really interesting paintings, actually, they are. So, now, where did you first come across the artist's work first of all, here, Andrew?
Well, she came and joined us for a long while at the writing sessions that Pat and I run in
Ah,
Rithim in the library. And so she came along, and she one day she brought a selection to show us, and that became I think it was part of the theme of that session was to work from a picture. My poem has gone a long way off what her picture was all about, but I looked at this beautiful picture of this woman, and I can't even remember if the poem was called Shaman or if the picture was called Shaman or if I invented that. But that's what the feeling I got. Somebody who was so completely within nature that they are part of nature, which is, of course, how we all should be, really. Um, as you can probably pick up, there's a lot of references to sort of pleasant, beautiful, but also some quite ugly, dirty things. So, to be in touch with nature isn't an entirely serene and beautiful process. There's hard things to it as well. But the other important thing about a shaman is that they are halfway between nature and spirit. They're partly physical, partly physical. It's their mind, if you like, that is this dividing line. And yes, the poem does involve spirit flight. That is something that I felt was really important, is that they have this solid, gritty, natural form as a human being, but they are also this white bird flying in the air that can see beyond. And that's a really important thing for me. And I have to recommend my pictures. They are beautiful.
Oh, she's talented, lovely
Yeah.
artist. Mm.
I've not told you this two yet, but I'm going to try. We're trying to get in contact with her. I want to bring on Spoken Label, so she will be seeing this
Ah,
link fairly soon. For the
we know
work we've
how to
got.
get hold of her.
Brilliant.
I'm sure she'll be
I'll
delighted.
speak to you both separate afterwards then, right? Because I want to get wrong to that. I look. It's when I get a name of an artist coming up, like your poem here under reference. I always research the person on top of it. I want to see what the paintings are like, and they really grabbed me. I thought they were fantastic. So Really, really
Yeah,
impressed with that. And I've had artists on there before, so definitely. So I'll speak to you
yeah.
both
Oh, great.
off mic afterwards on that one. So, but thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, a couple of joint questions to wrap up with today in this one for you. Now, I asked this question to Diane and Leaf last time, so I'm going to ask you both the same, because I think it's a good question, this. Has the process of creating this anthology changed how you see the natural world?
I think it has. It's made me much more aware. One of the elements of the book is not just putting the poems together, but writing little footnotes to give you a sort of educational take on it as what's happening to various species. And the
Yeah,
more I did that, the more I realized that more and more animals and plants mentioned in the collection are under threat. And it
yeah,
was a real wake-up call, and I
brilliant,
realized just how urgent the whole issue is. So yeah, it has changed the way I look at things.
brilliant. Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, it's funny actually because I mean I've become quite with my career I've become quite cynical about nature and its future because I just see damage being done all the time, and it's quite frightening to see it. Working on this collection, I've caught some of the joy and excitement from others about nature, and it's restored my love of nature. Um, I don't say I didn't never lost a love of nature, but I certainly became very cynical, as I say, about its survival. And this collection really helped me to find my way to that joy again.
I think what
Brilliant.
we wanted to do is create a collection that wasn't all doom and gloom, because we
Yeah,
all know we're facing hard times in the natural world, but we wanted to also pinpoint the beauty that's still there, how much magic is still left in the world, and how we can relate to that, our kind of spiritual connection to it.
Brilliant. No, agreed. Good points. Good points all around. It made me look at it that way, and I thought that's good. I'm looking from the outsider, so yeah,
Mm.
brilliant. Could you both see any future collaborative projects on the go between either the pair of you or the all four of you, maybe even?
well, yeah, I'd like to think so. I mean, he's obviously worked really well, and collaboration is, yes, it has its constraints, but it also provides huge opportunities. You have to compromise sometimes, but by compromising, you create so much more to expand into, so much space to expand into. I do hope we have another project, and it may be something that comes out of the writing group that you and I run, or maybe, as you say,
Mm.
between us all.
Yeah, I've loved every minute of it. It's been a real privilege to work with Andrew and Diane Leaf. What I've found is that we all think the same way. We have a lot in common, and it's been a really precious time working on the collection. So it'll be lovely to do more.
Mm.
Fingers crossed for the four of you, that because it's been so much. You can see the chemistry in this book. You can. I would like to
Mhm.
think there'll be another one between the four of you, definitely. So fingers crossed
Thank
for that.
you.
Now,
Oh, thank you.
what is next, creative wise, for you both? Then have you got any other projects on the go you want to talk about?
Well, okay, I'll start off. Um, I'm just in the process of getting a book to publication. It's written, I've been researching over a number of years now the history of the church and village of Llanelidan.
Oh,
And it's a lovely little place, beautiful little village, and a lovely little church, quite unusual, with a totally unique saint that it's dedicated to. And I've been writing and working on this. So that's my project that's sort of just coming to an end now, in the hope that we should be going to print very soon.
fingers crossed.
Um, so that's my project, and now I'm looking for other things. I need to find another project to work on. So your question before is very timely.
I've got a suggestion for you, but we'll come on to that afterwards. Okay, so I
I've
know
been,
somebody.
as well as write.
Sorry, Pat.
Sorry, you cut out a bit there,
I
Andy.
did, didn't I? Sorry, Pat. Over to you, Pat. Sorry.
I also write children's stories as well as poetry. And I've been writing a story about an endangered turtle, sort of environmental picture book for
Brilliant.
children, with a very talented North Wales artist called Mike Roberts. We're sort of looking for a publisher for that at the moment. There's another rhyming picture book I'm working on. And I'm always writing poems. I'm always, I have to have something creative on the go, or the world isn't quite right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always tinkering with something.
Well, I think the
Mm.
creative people we are, when you get to that book, it's not going to give up. You're looking for that next project sometimes. Yeah, I can, my case, I always got three or four projects on the go. So yeah, completely agree. Now, where can people find you both on social media, if you use it even very much?
Yeah. Sorry, Andy, you're breaking up a little bit, so I hope
I
they're
am
coming
on.
across okay to you.
Yes.
Um,
So where can people find you both on social media?
yeah, yeah. I think the social media thing. I mean, I have a Facebook presence and a LinkedIn presence, although I don't really use them very much. It's terrible, really. I probably should use them more. I'm a bit of an old git, really. I want to go and hide away in the countryside. So, but at the same time, I know what you need to. I need to get something going for myself. The thing is, I'm just lazy, and Pat's so good at doing it that up to now with this collection, I've just relied on Pat being so good at it all.
Oh, we do have page for the book, Andy. We have a I Am Nature Facebook page and a YouTube channel, so people can find the book there. I'm
Brilliant.
also on Facebook and Instagram as Patricia Sumner. So yeah.
Brilliant. And obviously, where can
So I
people
think the
last?
best
Oh,
thing that
sorry, pardon me.
no, it's okay. And sorry, I interrupt. I burst in. I was going to say everybody ought to go out and buy your listeners. They should go out and buy a copy of the book.
That's what I was coming on
That's
to
the
next
minimum
then,
they should
actually.
do.
Where do you recommend they go to get the book then, lastly?
Well, you can either go to the publisher, which is Beneficia Publications, or it's on Amazon, or you can get it from any major bookstore. They will be able to get it from their usual book distributor for you.
Brilliant. No, great stuff. That's all my questions. So thank you both for that. It's been absolute
Oh,
pleasure. Thoroughly enjoyed this last 40 minutes or so. So brilliant stuff. So we are going to
Well,
take a
thank
quick
you for having us. It's been nice chatting with you.
yeah.
same here in reverse. So we're going to take a quick break now, folks. I want to thank Pat and Andrew again for putting up with me for 40 minutes. And when we come back, they're going to read out a few poems for us from this book. So thank you both again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, we'll see you all in two shakes of the dice.